Today on the 10-12 podcast, we're recapping everything that went down in Week 13 in the Big 12 Conference, including the upsets, the chaos, and the current tiebreaker situations. Yes, Texas Tech can still make the Big 12 championship game. Plus, we're looking in on women's and men's basketball to see where things stand at this point in the season across the Big 12 Conference, what teams are impressing, and what the conference as a whole needs to do this week.
This episode is brought to you by Iams Pet Food. When you choose Iams dry dog or cat food, you can see a difference in your pet with your own eyes. Healthy energy in 5 days, healthy digestion in 10 days, and healthy skin and coat in just 25 days. Satisfaction for you and them. Guaranteed or your money back. Feed Iams dry dog or cat food and see a visible difference. Visit iams.com/difference to learn more.
Money decisions don't have to be either or. With Bank of America, they can be yes and. Like yes to sunny vacations and rainy day funds. Can our digital tools and guidance help you create the future you want? Yes. And help you keep enjoying today too. Do more with a bank that asks, what would you like the power to do? Explore our tips and more at bankofamerica.com/yes and.
Guys, Spotify let me down. I found out today that Blink-182 put out an album in early September. Bro, for real though? That was
Almost 3 months
almost
ago.
3 months ago. Yeah, that's crazy. I've been on my pop punk arc. It should have told me. I can't believe this is the first time I found out you can't trust technology.
Were you not following Blink on Spotify?
I mean,
you know what's even crazier?
I don't know.
Spotify never told me. So this is the first I'm hearing of it.
Are you on the same arc? Are you
No.
with me, Andy? No.
Probably not, but I mean, I probably have been on mine for a lot longer than you have, so.
Okay, well, that's fair. I've been listening to just a bunch of bands that have 40,000 monthly listeners, you know? So it tells me when the weird underground stuff comes out, but Blink-182, they were like, this is too mainstream for you. We already know. Here, take some more Hot Mulligan. Take some more Winona Fighter. Take some more Prince Daddy and the Hyena. That's what you want. Here, take it.
Welcome to the 10-12, the podcast that covers all 16 teams in the Big 12 Conference and occasionally Jamie Steyer-Johnson's music listens. We are the flagship show of the 10-12 Network. Find every show on the network at 1012network.com. And of course, we are partners with Sports Social, Europe's biggest sports podcast network. I'm your host, Phillip Slavin. Thank you for joining us on this Thanksgiving week. If I sound different, it's because it's Thanksgiving week and y'all know what that means. It's time for the annual Phillip is recording live from his childhood closet, which is unventilated and small and uncomfortable. So by the end of this, I will be both sweaty and achy in various leg joints. But I'm doing this anyways, because there's no way we can skip an episode after a weekend like we just had with how wild and crazy the next week could be in the Big 12. More than any other conference, by far. And so to help me break it down, as they do every single week, that beautiful voice you heard to start things off, lamenting the failures of Spotify. By the way, the opinions of Jamie Steyer-Johnson do not reflect the 10-12 network as a whole when it comes to Spotify, who is, I guess, kind of our hosting platform. She is Jamie Steyer-Johnson.
Look, I mean, they do a great job of pushing a lot of things I do listen to. I just think that they gave me a little bit too much credit as a hipster. I would take the mainstream. But besides that, not a whole lot of complaints. No complaint. Well, one complaint on the sports front this week, but mostly we're rolling.
I mean, But wouldn't hipsters get mad that Spotify sent them? Like people who might listen to your primary collection of music be irritated that they would think that they would want to listen to some old mainstream
That's
band?
what I'm saying. That like they gave me too much credit. Like they were thinking
Okay,
that I
yeah.
was like too committed to the hipster life as opposed to just, I'll run the spectrum there.
Blame the algorithm. Always blame the algorithm.
Wait, did you see that you can reset your Instagram algorithm now?
No.
If you somehow stumble into a brain rot Instagram algorithm, like a number of my friends have, because they think it's funny and so they sit and they watch them, you can get rid of that. All right. Now I guess Andy can talk.
Good to know. Yeah. Well,
This week in tech news with Jamie. No, look, all I will say in Spotify's defense is that nobody's perfect. So, they're bound to get a couple things wrong every once in a while.
Po Buddy's nerfed. Well, look, everybody in the Big 12 in the beginning of before the season got a lot of things wrong. When you look at the conference standings,
I don't know what you're talking about.
What they were projected to be.
And in conference, nobody's perfect.
No, definitely nobody's perfect anymore. With the losses that continue to rain down within this conference of absolute chaos. Let's get this ball. By the way, no guest this week. We've got basketball to talk about in the second half of the show, so we need to give the Vibe Queen JSJ as much time as she needs to discuss the incredible Big 12 women's hoops. And of course, Andy will talk men's side. But let's dive into football and recap the weekend that was. Kansas 37, Colorado 21. The Kansas burns the Big 12 down to a smoldering pile of ash tour continued on Saturday and beating Colorado by 2 scores. Shout out to Brett McMurphy for this stat. The Jayhawks become the first team in college football history with a losing record to defeat 3 straight AP top 25 ranked teams. Chase said it on the Picks Pod on Thursday last week, which is another reason why you should listen to that. Kansas is currently the best team in the Big 12 Conference. They are playing like the best team in the Big 12 Conference. According to Max Olson, Kansas punter Damon Greaves' family made the trip from Australia to Kansas City for the Colorado game. Probably should have picked a different one, as Kansas didn't punt the ball once. Their drive chart is touchdown, field goal, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, end of game.
I mean,
they came all the way from Australia for one game, never touched the field. As that's the only time as a parent you can be pleased that your son didn't see the field in a game in which they were an expected participant.
Right. Yeah, no, they, that is one of the, like, when your job is to come in and do something when the rest of the team messes up, the offense doesn't get the first down that they're supposed to. You hope that you don't actually have to get on the field, and you hope that you don't have to watch your kid do that as well. But no, it's actually kind of funny. I think, yes, that stat is great. The whole first time ever. And we did say this was going to be a historical season for Kansas. I just don't think that was the kind of history that we thought the Kansas would be making this year. They still have an opportunity though to go to a 3rd straight bowl, which would be the first time in program history that ever happened. But I think the funniest part about all of this is that looking at the Big 12 conference championship tiebreaker scenarios.
We'll get to that.
Okay, fine. You've ruined my funny stat.
No.
The fact that Kansas could be the one that decides who actually gets into the Big 12 championship
is perfect.
Yeah, it's great.
Perfect.
I hope that the punter just like took his family to the field after. It was like, no, I'm just gonna punt a couple times for you. Like, here, I'll just.
Well, I mean, they gotta watch them in warm-ups. So yeah.
Open up the pockets, keep them there for a week. Come on, folks. Not them, the fans. Or
you hold the ball till the end of the game when the claim clock's 0. You could have just punted the ball. You're up 2 scores. You should just let him go out there and punt since his parents were there, because it's not like Colorado.
Punt from the Colorado's 20. I mean,
just punt one.
Touchback.
Just punt one out. Yeah, punt one. Just do it. Just come on.
Boot it out of the stadium.
Get out there.
I was gonna say he could have tried to channel his inner Patrick Mahomes and try to punt one over the stadium wall, where Mahomes threw one over the stadium wall at Arrowhead. So would have been fun.
Beautiful. The insanity in the Big 12 continues. Arizona State 28, BYU 23. Absolutely wild ending to this game. If you didn't see it, Jamie with the Big 12 mug. That's a very nice Big 12 mug.
Yes,
it's very nice.
Yes. Big 12 tournament last year. I was really jazzed. They gave me a mini bottle of barbecue sauce in this mug that I use.
Yep.
Constantly.
I would enjoy both.
They are both fantastic.
So, Arizona State fans charge onto the field. They've upset BYU. They're now 1-1 away from a Big 12 championship game berth. Everyone's down there, and then the refs are looking at the monitors, and they have to put 1 second back on the clock. So all the fans got to get off the field so that BYU can attempt a Hail Mary to try and win the game. Because they're only down 5 points. Touchdown would have gotten them a win. Arizona State fans are furious. Absolutely angry. BYU, Retzlaff throws it as far as he can. They called it an incompletion. I thought he caught it at the 2 and was down at the 2. I don't know why it was called an incompletion. It looked like a completion to me. Doesn't really matter. They didn't reach the end zone. Had BYU pulled that off, Tempe may not be here today. It may just not exist on the map. It'll just be like the outskirts of Tempe and then a smoldering black hole in the middle of it. Arizona State fans, though, got a little bit gnarly after all this finally went down. And you've got video of an Arizona State fan having to be tackled by police and security because he was going after BYU coaches. Like, Arizona State fans, I know that from a football standpoint, y'all aren't used to success. Chill. Okay, we love the story. We love you guys this year. It's a ton of fun watching this program turn around from what they dealt with Herm Edwards to bringing home one of your own to take over the program, a job that some didn't know if he would actually want to take, and now he's got them on the doorstep of a Big 12 championship game berth in his first season in the conference, and the only thing standing in your way is a rivalry game. Calm down a little bit, just a little bit.
Keep
okay?
a little
Let's
in the
not
tank, you know.
Save some for when you get upset next week by Arizona. I'm kidding.
I thought I was about to get Arizona State fans mad at me for saying that there really should have been an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on the fan base for being on the field with time left. Like in almost every other situation, that is a flag and it results in 15 yards. So the fact that it didn't, I thought they were pretty fortunate, which would have made that Hail Mary actually achievable for BYU, and that might have been something completely different that we saw at the end there. But
the clock hit 0. Like the clock hit 0, they thought they could run on the field. It wasn't until they reviewed it and realized they had to put a second back.
No,
and
I understand that, but it is the facility's responsibility to make sure that the field stays clear until it is completely done, that there is no additional. So again, I just there have been other instances like that where it has resulted in a penalty. And so the fact that there was not a penalty, I thought Arizona State was rather fortunate that there was not a penalty that actually made that Hail Mary a difficult Hail Mary that obviously didn't make it all the way to the end zone.
2 final thoughts. Shout out to Jake Retzlaff. I know he wasn't great in this game, but man, he's the only reason that BYU is in this game as well as he played and all he did and putting BYU on his shoulders on Saturday night. Thought number 2, the official policy of the 10-12 network is always rush the field or the court. I will never judge any fan base for rushing no matter who you beat. I don't care. If you feel a need to rush, get on out there. Have yourself.
However,
always be safe.
For legal reasons, please wait until the game is actually over, though.
Yes, that's a good idea. Iowa State 31, Utah 28. Cyclones survive in Salt Lake after Utah misses a 54-yard game-tying field goal attempt. I believe it was like there was a penalty. It was a weird penalty call, like that backed Utah up to a much further distance, and Utah fans weren't thrilled about it. Iowa State won ugly. They won ugly. Threw a pick 6, missed a field goal, allowed a punt return touchdown. Like, Iowa State kept Utah in this game way more than Utah kept themselves in this game. Look, Iowa State's still in the spot it wants to be in, despite how ugly it's been the last 4 games. But they're still here. They're still here. You know, like it's solid verbal, as they say. You got to win your clunkers, and Iowa State has done that 2 weeks in a row now, and they're sitting in a very, very good spot. We'll talk more about it here in a minute. But it's so hard right now to trust this Iowa State team from what we've seen. Like Kansas and Iowa State are almost going in opposite directions, and it's wild.
Not almost, they are. But I mean, I think the one thing I will say in their defense is that Utah has done that to several teams this year, where they have made them look horrible and made them play what seemed to be one of their worst games of the season. I don't know.
That would be fine if it was an outlier,
right.
Not the fourth game.
I was going to say,
like
yes, there's some recent history with Iowa State that makes you wonder if this one might be more real. And to be honest, BYU after playing Utah has not looked that great in either of the 2 games after that. So maybe there is something to be said about Utah not being able to win the game, but being able to derail seasons. Who knows? Like maybe that's what their special talent is this year.
I feel like people saying like it's hard to trust this Iowa State team is just how Iowa State fans tend to feel by default.
I was just say that doesn't seem like anything new for most of the Iowa State fans that I know.
Yeah, like it's just like, yeah, I mean, you can never really believe anything, but if you pull it out, it's like a win's a win. It's more surprising when you get on a roll and look good consistently without having anything kind of stupid happen. So it's like, hey, had basically the dream scenario occur yesterday, Saturday, and now you get a big Farmageddon. So it's gonna be a cold one, but bundle up and get out there, unless you're in 80-degree weather in Florida, in which case you might be occupied. But
yeah, no, I was gonna say who would have thought that the same, or I guess coming into the year, there was probably 2 things you would say you don't trust about Iowa State: the ability to win 10 games in a season and the ability to beat Iowa. And they've already done one of those, so maybe they can actually finish off the second one.
I mean, look, Iowa State, if you look at the box score, Iowa State dominated Utah. 25 first downs to 9. 8 of 16 on third down for Iowa State. 3 of 10 for Utah. 405 total yards of offense for Iowa State. 224 for Utah. 123 yards rushing for Iowa State. 95 for Utah. Penalties. 1 penalty for 5 yards on Iowa State. 6 for 57 on Utah.
Came at a rough time.
But when you
did come at a bad time on the penalty.
Did come at a bad time. But then again, you miss a field goal, you throw a pick 6, you give a punt return touchdown, and this is what happens. You have a game that, look, sometimes the score tells us the answer, sometimes the box score does. Box score doesn't tell all the story, except that it looks like Iowa State should have dominated Utah. They didn't. They are alive. All right, we got to talk about the title game, because we are 2 weeks away.
Wait, I'm sorry. Hold on. Sorry. One thing I have to say about this game. It was very interesting that Rocco Becht was the only quarterback that could throw for a touchdown. For both teams. So.
Oh, I get it. Okay. That's funny.
Apparently it wasn't.
I got the joke now. It took me a minute. The gears had to turn a little bit.
Okay. We are on a roll tonight.
Title game. 2 weeks away. Week 14 is next weekend. It's a massive week. Just in case there's any confusion, the Big 12 has put out a bunch of information about the tiebreaker scenarios.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
There are technically still 9 teams in play for the Big 12 championship game if absolute chaos rains down. Okay? Let's start with the easy one, the one that seems most likely. If there is, or let me say, the one that seems most likely of all the possibilities. If there is a 4-way tie at 7-2 between Arizona State, BYU, Colorado, and Iowa State, 1-seed Arizona State would play 2-seed Iowa State in Arlington. So if the 4 teams atop the standings right now, as we have a current 4-way tie, all win on Saturday, it's Iowa State and Arizona State in the Big 12 title game. Cyclones versus Sun Devils, just like we all drew it
Yeah,
up
exactly.
in Arlington. Okay?
The battle of the red and gold.
3 team scenarios. Let's run through these. All right. If Colorado loses, it's Arizona State versus Iowa State. Okay, so let's assume, with the 4-way tie, let's assume that Colorado loses and BYU, Arizona State, and Iowa State win. It's Arizona State, Iowa State. If Arizona State loses, it's Iowa State versus BYU. If Iowa State loses, it's Arizona State versus BYU. If BYU loses, this is where it gets really, really weird.
Take a swig of water.
And
Make
starts
sure you
falling-
can get through this one.
And starts falling upon what happens to the teams below everybody else. If BYU is to lose and the other 3 teams win, if Texas Tech defeats West Virginia, then if Baylor beats Kansas and Cincinnati beats TCU, then it's Colorado versus Iowa State. If Texas Tech defeats West Virginia and that other scenario, including Baylor, Kansas, and Cincinnati TCU, doesn't happen, it's Colorado versus Arizona State. If West Virginia beats Texas Tech, again, this is all the if BYU loses, then it's Arizona State versus Iowa State. If BYU loses, then all these other games come into play to set up the tiebreaker rules based off of who beat who, because it's a 16-team conference.
It's great.
Texas Tech, let's have the fun ones here. Texas Tech can clinch a berth in the Big 12 title game with a win, a BYU loss, an Iowa State loss, a Colorado loss, and an Arizona State loss.
Why not?
Just really simple stuff.
West Virginia.
This is the one that I think is absolutely hilarious.
Because West Virginia Texas Tech play. If West Virginia can clinch a Big 12 title game berth with a win, a Baylor loss, a BYU loss, a Colorado loss, and an Arizona State loss.
West Virginia doesn't care about Iowa State in this scenario. Exactly.
They don't care how far we get. Y'all figure all that corn, wheat nonsense out. Okay,
I saw it run around. Right. There are some people that are pulling for a Riot Bowl Big 12 championship.
Oh.
Can you imagine just how ridiculous that would be?
So, for the teams who are 5-3 entering the week, they must win and see at least 3 of the 4 6-2 teams take a loss to actually have a shot here. And we just named 2 of them. That is insane, people. And Baylor, of course, is, I don't have all the, if Baylor gets in, I didn't put that down because I'm like, whatever.
I mean, Baylor's going to lose to Kansas this week anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I mean, the most cruel thing to happen is that Kansas can beat all these ranked teams and then can't beat Baylor in the finale. But,
yeah, but that's not going to happen. We're okay.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. Oh, Andy, you are so confident.
I know.
So confident.
I have to be. Come on. I'm a Kansas football fan. I have to be confident at some point about something.
So let's talk. This is all crazy, right? We all understand Jamie as our vibe queen here. Like, the vibes here are
frazzled and all over the place
and incredible.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many possibilities. Just stick your hand in the giant bowl and pull out whatever you get. And congratulations, that's the Big 12 title game. Because that's how it feels right now. Because if you have money to do like, well, all 4 are probably going to win on Saturday.
By far, though, the most likely scenario is that it's Arizona State, Iowa State.
That is the most likely scenario in all this, is that it's Arizona State versus Iowa State in the Big 12 title game.
For the record,
yes,
listening to you list out all the scenarios verbally was a middle right on the vibe chart.
Yeah, perfect.
Which is great. Jamie has shared the vibe chart in our chat for us so that we have it. And appreciate the visual cue.
I mean,
I'll remind everybody what the game, and we're going to talk about the games.
Wait, did we ever post that?
I'll remind. I thought so. Did we not?
We'll have to post it again just to be sure. I will say I thought it would be more of a top right, but middle right is also acceptable.
Yeah, no, it's like trying to process that is not funny for me. It is horrifying.
I'm sorry. It's available.
It's okay. I mean, it's
Big12.com.
I can read it.
Big 12
okay.
Conference.com. Yeah, good.
But conceptually.
To remind everybody of the 4 teams currently tied, Colorado hosts Oklahoma State. Arizona State's on the road at Arizona. Rivalry game. BYU hosts Houston. And then there's this little game in Ames involving Iowa State and Kansas State that we call Farmageddon. So that's all that's on the line here. That's all that's on the line.
Remember when we talked earlier this season about Farmageddon potentially deciding who was the second team in the Big 12 championship? Turns out we were right, but not for the reason we thought we were.
Not in the way we thought we were. Not in the way we thought we were. Speaking of Farmageddon, we'll talk about it more coming up. Kansas State 41, Cincinnati 15. Here is what it looks like for Kansas State to reach the Big 12 championship game. Seems like a good time to bring this up. Win at Iowa State and losses by 2 or more of the other first place teams of Arizona State, BYU, Colorado. I think they still need some other things to occur. They're in a logjam tiebreaker at 6-3 because of the schedule. There's a lot on the line for both teams in this game. For Iowa State, it's back to the Big 12 championship game against Arizona State and a chance at the first bid into the 12-team playoff. If they can beat Arizona State, this is a huge game against a rival. Yes, Jamie Pollard, this is a rivalry. Whether you acknowledge it or not, this deserves a trophy. This name should be used everywhere. We all call it Farmageddon for a reason. It is an awesome game. For Kansas State, you have the opportunity to maybe get to Arlington, but more so, keep Iowa State from getting to Arlington, and ensure they do not finish the regular season by reaching 10 wins for the first time in school history. They would then have to go to a bowl game and hope that they can achieve that there. And of course, bragging rights, because it would absolutely gut Iowa State fans to be in this spot of just win, and you're basically in. I mean, how can you not? I'm not supposed to talk about Kansas State, Cincinnati. It doesn't matter. Kansas State blew Cincinnati out. Cincinnati, we'll talk about them in a minute.
Yeah, the game that I thought would have potentially been an interesting one was very quickly over. So,
no.
Much like our discussion.
We talked about this on the Picks Pod. Cincinnati is a mini-me version of Kansas State. They want to be Kansas State. Shout out to, I forget who it was in the Water Out Night Light Discord who actually made the graphic that we asked for of Kansas State as Dr. Evil and Cincinnati as mini-me. It was perfect. Thank you so much for that. Dead on accurate. Jamie, what are the vibes around this game as of now?
I mean, look, I know at one point it looked in the forecast like there might be snow. Currently, it's cleared up. I would like for that to come back.
We want snow.
Yeah.
We want snow.
I will be
snow.
Attempting to fly back into Iowa at that point. So, having snow, not ideal. But I would take one for the team, literally, and have the flight be a little more difficult and have it be real cold because it's gonna be either way. So if we could just run that whole thing back, that'd be super cool. Beyond that, I don't know. I mean, it's a big game. It was already gonna be a big one, but now you got a lot on the line to play for. And yeah, so the good and the bad of there's a lot at stake is the good, there's a lot at stake is the bad.
Perfect transition to say, let's run through the ugly that was the rest of the weekend for the Big 12. West Virginia 31, UCF 21. West Virginia reached bowl eligibility and eliminated UCF from getting to a bowl game for the second straight year, their first two in the Big 12 Conference. I have seen some rumors regarding Neil Brown on social media. I will not believe it until it becomes official. However, the video of him and his family after the win is not the look you expect from someone who's just gotten their team to bowl eligibility. They looked solemn after the win. It was weird. It's him, his wife, and his kids, and it looked like they lost. Like, if you said, here's this video of the head coach of West Virginia, now tell me, did his team win this today or lose? And I didn't know what had happened, I would have assumed they had lost. That's the look on his face and the way he's reacting with his family. It's super weird. We will see what happens to Neil Brown at the end of this season, because he still has a shot at 8 wins this year by beating Texas Tech in the season finale and then winning the bowl game. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine that they get rid of him after this year, just because.
That's right, the rumor.
Well, but with everything that we've talked about, you know, I mean, unless they get blown out in their last 2 games, because they're going to go to a bowl game at 6-6. The Big 12 has way too many tie-ins.
Well, you go to a bowl game anyways at 6-6 in a Power 4 conference. So.
Well, usually I've definitely seen some cases where 6-6 teams, if there's enough 6-6 teams, that they don't actually get invited. But yeah, Power 4 conferences, you're right.
Conference Power. This isn't the MAC.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Well, you know what though, if you listen to some of the national media, you know, it might as well be, because it's not the Big 12 or the Big 10 or the SEC.
They got him doubting.
Baylor 20, Houston 10. Baylor has now won 5 in a row to guarantee their first winning season since 2021, and they also eliminated Houston from bowl contention. Also, congrats to Baylor on winning the Southwest Conference Trophy after beating Houston, Texas Tech, and TCU all during this winning streak. Congratulations, the Southwest Conference is alive and well. TCU 49, Arizona 28. Yeah, TCU just blew them out, like a lot of teams have done to Arizona this year. TCU also eliminated Arizona from bowl contention and guarantee themselves a winning season. There's a really good quote out, or video of Sonny Dykes defending the Big 12 against just dumb Nick Saban comments, because one of the fun topics this week was TCU getting blown out in the national championship game to Georgia. And I love the Ole Miss fans who try to start stuff on the internet, and Texas Tech fans were the one that came at them. And then Ole Miss loses to Florida this week. And it's just karmic, cosmic justice. Ole Miss fans, just because you're in the same conference as Georgia does not mean that when they do things successfully, you get to also enjoy the benefits of that. You're still just Ole Miss. Texas Tech 56, Oklahoma State 48. I watched this game. I was there with my girls. We had a great time. We stayed for the halftime, watched the band play, and we left before my girls got fussy. I listened to the rest of the game in the car on the way home, and this is now the worst Oklahoma State defense in school history. And so, yeah.
I mean, this game was just as drunk as the Arkansas game. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was. Congrats, Texas Tech. If you can get to 8 wins this season, that's a successful season. It's been a long time since you've done that. If you're out on Sonny Dykes, I don't know what to tell you. Like, have realistic expectations, like, as he continues to build this program.
I don't think you mean Sonny Dykes.
Sonny Cumbie. Sonny. Wait. Who's the head coach of Texas Tech? Jamie McGuire?
Joey McGuire?
Oh, I thought for a second you were jokingly asking me who.
Yeah, I know. Joey McGuire, Phillip. Come on.
I was ready to bust out a really good bit on that one.
There's no airflow in the closet. I'm
we
sweating.
can tell.
Okay. It's been a very fun.
The only air flowing for me is through the holes in my ears.
Unfortunately, that cold open did nothing about the heat in the closet.
It starts fine, but there's no airflow. So the longer I sit in here, the more I sweat. And I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor. I am uncomfortable. But by golly, we're going to do this. One thing that is not uncomfortable are the incredible t-shirt, sweaters, and hoodies that you can get at Charlie Hustle. Man, I just set myself up for that one. That was fantastic. Bravo, me. Sweater knows why. I may not remember who Jamie McGuire is, but at least I get a segue in. I know, I said it on purpose this time. I know. Andy.
I'm still laughing at you
right.
high-fiving yourself.
Go to charliehustle.com. They have got sales that are going to be going on left, right, sideways, up, down, every which way from now through the end of the year, because this is the time of the season. You got Black Friday on Friday. There's going to be lots of deals going on. You got stuff all the way up through Christmas because people want to have good deals. And if you've got something you want for you, and buy yourself something for Christmas, nothing wrong with that. You want to buy some things for family or friends, go Go to charliehustle.com. If what you want is not on sale, use the promo code 101215, TEN1215, and get 15% off all non-sale items. So you're going to save no matter what. Whether it's on sale or not, you're going to save at charliehustle.com. And you're going to find something you love. You're going to find something that the people on your Christmas shopping list are going to love, because it's going to be incredibly comfortable. It's going to be looking cool. And you're going to love wearing it to the bowl game, to hoops, to whatever team event you're going to this fall, this winter, this spring. So charliehustle.com, promo code 101215, 15% off all non-sale items. Charlie Hustle, vintage made.
Charlie Hustle, which put out a NILT with one Audie Crooks recently.
And Aoka Lee.
Yeah, that was less recent, but yeah, she's on there.
Oh, I thought Jamie was going to say that was less exciting.
No, I love Aoka. I love Yoki, but Audie
JSJ
came out
is
like
not gonna
I
besmirch.
know.
You gotta celebrate.
That's 2
you gotta
strikes.
celebrate an Audie Crooks game winner, buzzer beater.
So, Jamie,
Ah,
this is your moment to shine, my friend.
just this one.
Let's talk about some Big 12. I set myself up for that one. I have no one to blame but me. No, that's what I get for giving myself applause. Let's talk a little Big 12 women's hoops. Let's run through things. Let's just talk about where things currently stand a couple of weeks into the season so far.
Things have been better. I will say that. You've got 2 of your top 25 teams that lost to unranked teams this week, which is unfortunate. Iowa State went on the road, lost to UNI. Not great. Not like the most shocking thing on earth. It's unfortunate, but if you have been around the Midwest, if you've been around women's basketball and paid attention long enough, you'll know that the in-state rivalry games in Iowa go crazy. So it sucks, bluntly, to be the first big upset of the year, but it is what it is. I said to someone else today in reference to South Carolina losing to UCLA, like, if you think that your team and your coach can improve as the season goes on, you want to play tough teams, you want to play tough games, you want to have things exposed that you can work on, because ultimately your record in November means nothing compared to what you can do in February, March, and especially March. So is what it is. Went out and beat Drake today, Sunday, by 2 again. Oh, wow, that's a tough game. That's a close game to a Valley team when you're right. I don't care. Like, first of all, those are 2 really, really good teams, 2 elite point guards that put on absurd offensive performances in my McDermott and Kate Dinabee. Like, I'm big fans of them. They're talented. Is what it is. But yeah, so Iowa State got some things exposed a little bit, but you know, something to work on. And then Baylor went out and was beat by Indiana today against Sunday in the Bahamas. Indiana been very up and down already this year, had some tough losses, but was ranked to start the year. They're obviously a Big Ten team, so I don't know. As kind of per usual, Baylor is a little bit of an enigma, and especially with some early season injury issues, like losing Jana Van Guytenbeek a while back, struggling a little bit at times to put it all together, but obviously have a whole lot of potential, still trying to work Aaron at Vonleh in there and figure that out. On the other end of things, I mean, you've got TCU that was into the top 25 this week, didn't have a whole lot of competition, took care of it handily, so they'll still be ranked easily. Baylor honestly might drop out. Iowa State will drop some, and then Kansas State still going to be ranked easily, dominated the game they had this week. Beyond that, I mean, not a lot of like really tight, exciting games this week in the Big 12. Like you've got a lot of teams that are still kind of figuring things out. Kansas went to a neutral site and played Iowa, ended up losing, but again, they're still kind of figuring their stuff out. They're getting Wyvette Mayberry back into the swing of things. And so that's going to be a huge boost once she's fully healthy again. You have Elle Evans, who had the best game of her career at Kansas thus far, went 9 for 18 from the floor, had 22 points. And so if she can continue to find that production, that's going to be a huge boost for them as well. And beyond that, like I said, just a very new identity for that team. So I think that getting that early competition for them will be really big.
That was also a game for them that they could not get anything going in that first quarter. And that just, I mean, after that, they played close. The rest, actually, they were up by 1 point after the first quarter. Like in terms of, from that point forward, they actually beat Iowa by a single point. Unfortunately, when your first quarter is 18-4 against you, there's not a whole lot that you can do.
You just dig a hole, and then, I mean, especially having so much new on the roster.
Yeah, well, the other thing,
Samaya can do it, Elle can, but beyond that, it's just hard to get everyone going.
The other thing too is that Kansas is really missing their inside presence. It's a brand new thing for them to try to figure out how to play without having the inside presence that they have had in the last few years. So we'll see how well they develop that moving forward.
Yeah, definitely going to be a learning curve over the course of the season for them.
I will say, though, there was one other score that really jumped out to me, and that was West Virginia beating Lafayette 98-28. They scored more points in the third quarter than Lafayette scored in the entire game.
That's actually good pull, because West Virginia has looked freaking good. Like, I was already annoyed by how underrated they were coming into this season, and I have felt extremely vindicated with that. I mean, you had Jordan Thomas, who I've said a couple times is my dark horse for freshman of the year. She's big, she's solid, she can produce. Played 22 minutes in that game, went 5 for 6 from the floor. Like, she's out there. She had 5 assists as well. Like, that's a huge post presence for them to add between her, Staley Riviere. Like, she didn't have a great game, but she's had some really good minutes for them. So even just to have bigger bodies inside, in addition to what they already brought back, like, is crazy for them. So I think that obviously not like great competition there, but when you're putting on that dominating of a performance, that does in fact say something.
Right. This is the go ahead.
Let me like the dominating performance. Like, let me run through their 6-0 start. Here's the scoring margin by game: 44, 69, nice, 28, 21, 31, and then 70 today. Like, the closest was 21 over Texas A&M. They have not been in a close game so far this season. It's like, I don't care who you're playing. When you're blowing teams out like that consistently, yes, you want to see them go up against somebody that would be something of a challenge, and I don't think they're going to get that until Big 12 play. But it's hard not to look at that and be impressed.
That shouldn't be true. They are going to the Gulf Coast Showcase this coming week. They're going to play High Point, which shouldn't be a problem. They're going to play either Boise State or Illinois State. And if they get through that and Texas takes care of things on the other side, they should be meeting Texas in the championship. And so we desperately need that to happen to be able to gauge where West Virginia's at. They should be desperately rooting for that to happen as well, so that they can get the chance for a marquee win, or at least a measuring stick, before they do get into Big 12 play. Because aside from that, yeah, their non-conference schedule is terrible. Especially like when you talk about, their closest game was Texas A&M. Texas A&M's bad. And that's your one power conference school. Well, one of your 2 power conference schools that you schedule, and they're both awful. So you should be really, really hoping you get to see Texas, and you'll probably get beat potentially pretty bad because of the matchup issues that Texas presents for them. But it'll get you a lot more prepared for the Big 12.
Yeah, and the one thing that I will say is, I mean, West Virginia kind of still occupies that space where you don't feel like they necessarily like they feel like there's something completely different from the rest of the conference.
Yeah.
And so how that matches up night in and night out is going to be a very interesting storyline, I think, for the entire year. But it also gives them, I think they surprised a lot of people last year because of how those matchups worked. I think they have the opportunity to do the same thing this year, but even more different because of that low post, presence that they actually have this year. Whereas last year it was all through the guards the entire year.
So let's just real quick, we'll run through this week, some of the games to keep an eye on. Kansas State will open up the Bulldogs Classic against Duke on Monday afternoon. You've got Arizona State at the Music City Classic opening up against Kentucky. Arizona versus Vanderbilt. These are both on Tuesday at the Acrisure Holiday Invitational. Let's see. Thursday, Kansas versus Pitt in round one of the Paradise Jam. Iowa State, South Carolina on Thursday on Big Fox. The Fort Myers tip-off.
Today, during our as we were getting into post-game after, a buzzer beater win, this was halftime. My broadcast partner, Noah Wolf, looked at me and told me the South Carolina score was 43-22. And I said, what? He's like, yeah. I said, dang, I'd hate to be the team that plays them next.
Well, guess who?
Whoops.
Texas Tech's got Florida State in the Paradise Jam on Thursday, and obviously some of these are the first rounds of multiple tournaments. But it just get more and more and more from there. TCU Notre Dame on Friday, BYU Iowa on Friday as well. Yeah. So
I forgot Kansas plays UNI.
Yeah, Kansas against that UNI team that you mentioned. So we'll get to see how the Jayhawks can, potentially play against the team that beat one of the favorites in the conference.
Hey, you know what? I guess Kansas gets bragging rights if they win that game at a neutral site as opposed to on the road.
I mean, until the game actually happens, between Kansas and Iowa State, and then look, yeah, I don't have any illusions this year.
All right, hopping over to the men's side, Andy.
Whole Foods Market has Thanksgiving gatherings covered. First things first, reserve your no antibiotics ever fresh whole turkey today, starting at $2.99 a pound. Or go with their organic spiral cut bone-in ham, full of seared-in flavor. For sides, choose Whole Foods Market grab-and-go platters. Go even further and get your whole meal catered. Just order online by November 26th. Get Thanksgiving ready at Whole Foods Market. Terms apply.
Still undefeated at this point, BYU, Cincinnati, Kansas, Colorado, and Iowa State. Houston's, of course, had the loss to Auburn. How do you see things and how they stand across the men's side of the Big 12 right now?
I mean, to be honest, it's kind of, I don't know that we know a lot because, with the exception of Gonzaga running through their Big 12, opponents, and I mean, Houston is 3-1. They've lost a game at this point. Like there's a lot of, I guess, I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but there's not a lot of clarity up at the top of the conference, other than the fact that, Kansas is still undefeated. Iowa State's undefeated, only playing 3 games.
Yeah.
You have
who put together Iowa State's schedule that they've played 3 games so far?
Well, because they're playing 3 this week.
Yeah, this is feast week. No. This is feast week. Teams play 3 games this week, but there's still other teams who played 5, 6, 7 games already. They're on game 4 on Monday, and look, it's big ones. You get stopped with Auburn. That's a nice one to kick off the Maui Invitational. It's 3 big games. Just wow, they've only played 3 games so far. It seems a low count when you literally took off. You played 1 game a week for 3 weeks in a row, and now you're on game 4.
That's how the women started the season last year. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I know Iowa State fans, from what I could tell from the Discord, not thrilled with it.
But I mean, you look around the rest of the conference, right? I don't think there's a lot of results so far that have been super surprising. Obviously, UCF getting that huge upset in the first game of the season for them was fantastic. You have you have BYU being undefeated. You've got Arizona with a couple big losses that I think were a little bit surprising. But I mean, for the most part, this is, kind of what you expect. You have teams that are getting into big games and big matchups that are performing fairly well, and not all of them are going to go their way. But, Baylor and Arizona having 2 losses are against some pretty good teams. So it's not like,
yeah, but they're not. The problem with those, and look, we talked about the Arizona game, the Arizona-Wisconsin game last week, and the insanity there. But then they got beat by double digits by Duke. Baylor, I mean, in the
destroyed
Bahamar,
by Gonzaga.
No, they got beat by Gonzaga, destroyed by Gonzaga. Then they got destroyed by Tennessee. The final score is 77-62. You're like, that's a 15-point loss. Tennessee was up 27. It was 47-20 at the half. Tennessee destroyed Baylor. I don't care about the flip of the second half. Destroyed them. Baylor's biggest games, they needed double overtime to beat St. John's, who's a top 25 team. I got a lot of questions about Baylor to start.
Well, and really with Baylor, the real question is the defense. It's not something we're used to seeing with a Scott Drew team. You look over at KenPom, they have the 67th ranked defense. Normally they're in the top 15. This is not something that we're used to seeing. I think at least some of that has to do with who they played. They played 2 really good offensive teams in Tennessee and Gonzaga. So I feel like that's going to come kind of back to earth a little bit, and they're going to be much more in line with what we expect. But, this is also kind of the point in the season where you have a few teams that have played really tough schedules, and you've kind of seen that kind of play out for them. You have some other teams that are actually playing really well, but, Texas Tech comes to mind all the time for this. They don't play a particularly difficult non-conference schedule, and so they look really, really good, and then you still don't know what you have until, when you get into conference play. Teams like Kansas, teams like Baylor, Houston, they have challenged themselves in the non-conference, and we have a good idea of what some of their big issues might be going into conference play. The question obviously is, how well can they actually prepare and overcome those?
Okay, and also, y'all need to remember, the men went to 20 conference games this year.
Yes.
So you're going to have people playing weird schedules. I'm looking here, there's not a way that Iowa State could have reasonably played more games already, because you're going to Maui, you're playing 3 as opposed to 2 there, like a lot of people do. You're not dropping the Big 12 Big East game, which is Marquette coming back on the 4th. You want a game, maybe less difficult game in between your bigger matchup. So you have one between Marquette, and then you play Iowa, and then you have literally 1 per week after Iowa leading into Big 12 play. We're going to see a lot of people with some big breaks. I feel like I would rather have the beginning of the season go slow, because if I'm going into Big 12 play and I'm playing 1 game in 10 days, 2 games in 2 weeks, that's going to be tough to, I think, turn around and adjust to the big pace of the Big 12. I don't know. I feel like that's going to influence how things are scheduled.
Yeah, this year is also kind of weird in that Christmas is on a Wednesday. And so you don't typically have a lot of teams in college that play on Christmas like they do on Thanksgiving. That's when most teams give, all of their athletes a break. Usually there's been enough of a kind of a break after that before we get into conference play that you can have a game on the 28th or something like that. But this year is, that Saturday, as opposed to having it as a midweek game before you get into conference play. So I think the calendar's a little bit weird this year to make that a little bit harder to space them out that way. And so, yeah, I mean, you're going to see some really weird, I think, non-conference schedules. But I mean, you look at what Kansas does, they routinely have in December, they have those fairly difficult games. They're, going on the road to Creighton, going on the road to Missouri, hosting NC State. That's a stretch that a lot of teams, that might be what their marquee Power 5 matchups are, for the non-conference. But, oh yeah, they've already played North Carolina. They've already played Michigan State, and they're playing Duke coming up here on Tuesday. You see these sort of non-conference, things that I'm curious what else we're going to learn about a lot of these top teams in Houston, Kansas, Baylor, Arizona, like all of the teams that are up there, as we go through the rest of this non-conference schedule.
Well, and there's plenty of opportunities this week. It's Feast Week. There's plenty of opportunity for wins. And the Big 12 needs them. Because at this point, the UCF win over A&M that we keep mentioning, and Kansas win over North Carolina at the start of the season, what else does the Big 12 have to hang its hat on right now? Your other best teams have either not played any other marquee teams or have been beaten by them. And by double digits in every scenario. Like, the Big 12 doesn't have enough to hang its hat on right now. It's not a great start to the season so far. We say, well, they played another marquee team. Right. But when your best teams keep losing to the other best teams, maybe it's matchups. And obviously there's room to grow for everyone, and what matters in March is far more important than what happens in November, except that what happens in November does help build out resumes. It does help make a lot of deciding factors for how good the Big 12 is, because you do have fewer opportunities for out-of-conference wins to set the conference up when you have expanded to 20 conference games this year. This is a big week for the Big 12 and some of the opportunities that are in front of it. Okay. And so you really want to see the Big 12 do well this week. I mean, it wasn't a great start on Sunday. OSU lost to Nevada. UCF lost to LSU in triple overtime, which you hate, but like still a loss. Kansas State lost to Liberty. And so like you need Iowa State to upset Auburn, to beat Auburn. Maybe a Colorado over Michigan State. Houston's got Alabama. Kansas has Duke. West Virginia's playing Gonzaga. Oh, God, the Gonzaga takes on everyone in the Big 12 tour continues. Houston's got 4-1 Notre Dame. You need some wins this week for the conference to start hanging its hat on, because at this point, I guess I can give Kansas a win over Michigan State as another one. So it's 3. Andy, can you name another win? And there's wins that are over teams who aren't top 25. They're still good wins. But can you name any other like hang our hat on wins than UCF over A&M, Kansas over North Carolina, and Michigan State?
Yeah, I mean, no.
Yeah, I can't.
Not really.
No.
I mean, yeah, there's not really any that come to mind immediately.
Can I pull up Ken Palm and maybe find another couple top 100 wins?
Right.
Maybe?
Like that's what I'm trying to find. Like that's actually what I was doing as you were saying that. So
yeah, there's this is a big week for the Big 12.
I guess you could point to Baylor's win over St. John's.
Yes.
Like
okay.
That's a big win. I don't know if it's quite on the same level.
It's a good win. It's a ranked team.
Right.
So that's
St. John's is 14th in Ken Palm.
There you go. That's a good win.
That is a good win.
All right.
But yeah, there's not nearly enough of them for you to really feel comfortable at this point. And I think kind of to that end, you look over on Ken Palm, the conference rankings. This is the first time in a long time that the Big 12 has not been the runaway number one conference. Right now it's the SEC by a decent margin. So that, Houston, Alabama game becomes much bigger. That's a giant one that you can point to. Iowa State, Auburn, like those are really good immediate opportunities to kind of level that and get back to where the Big 12, I think, rightfully is as the best conference in all of college basketball. I do think, and Gary Parrish over at CBS was actually asking this question of TJ Otzelberger at Big 12 Media Days of like the SEC might actually be the best conference this year. And I think a lot of that had to do with those teams up at the top. Unfortunately, that's how a lot of people look at the conferences is your top 3 or 4 teams. How do they match up against the top 3 or 4 teams from everywhere else? So I'll be interested to see how those matchups continue to kind of shake out throughout the rest of the year.
Love it. It's a good stopping point, everybody. Good show. I only made like 10 different errors, but that's okay. It's a holiday week, and we're all on holiday.
Besides, we did a cold open, so things were going to naturally be a little bit more chaotic.
Yeah, absolutely.
If that was possible.
Which makes it a very Big 12 show. Look,
it's always possible to have more chaos. Always.
Okay. This show has to reflect the Big 12 conference, and so this is a chaotic conference and a chaotic season. This show should reflect that with more chaos. And we'll find ways to continue to do that over the next few weeks before we get to our holiday break. So, however you're listening, wherever you're listening, do us a favor. Leave us 5 stars. Leave us a review. It really does help the show out. Check out every show at 1012network.com. You can find links to everybody there. That includes Andy's show, the Rock Chalk Podcast.
Was I supposed to jump in here with something?
No, I'm lagging
Okay.
or something.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, you really can find the Rock Chalk Podcast over there. So
No, my video is lagging, so we're going to wrap. Of course, also JSJ, Jamie Steyer-Johnson, our Vibe Queen. Jay Styes, JSTEYZ on the Twitter machine. Jamie, is it the same thing on Blue Sky?
Yeah.
There you go.
Same thing everywhere, baby.
Absolutely. We will share the vibe chart this week. I promise. Y'all have a good week. We'll talk to you again on Thursday.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
"88% of the work week is spent communicating, typing, talking, and going back and forth on topics until everyone is on the same page. It's time for a change. It's time for Grammarly. Grammarly's AI ensures your team gets the point across the first time, eliminating misunderstandings and streamlining collaboration. It goes beyond basic grammar to help tailor writing to specific audiences. Whether that means adding an executive summary, fine-tuning tone, or cutting out jargon in just one click. 4 out of 5 professionals say Grammarly's AI boosts buy-in and moves work forward. It integrates seamlessly with over 500,000 apps and websites, is implemented in days, and is IT approved. Join over 70,000 teams and 30 million people who trust Grammarly to elevate their communication. Visit Grammarly.com/enterprise to learn more. Grammarly. Enterprise-ready AI.